Well, welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. And there you see our guest via Zoom. Happy that this worked out. Always happy this works out. Again, we have with us Howard Gentry, criminal court clerk, and Judge Rachel Bell, who was elected in 2012 here in Davidson County, an established community court, which we're going to be talking about, a remarkable court that has expunged thousands of cases. But each of you hold prominent positions within our criminal justice system here in Davidson County. And I want to ask big picture. As you have watched these protests all across the country and even some here, what has gone through your mind? And Judge Bell, I'll start with you. But as you've watched these protests, what have you thought?
Well, you know, as I still would call myself a young adult, I'm 42 years old. And so I remember when I think I was maybe 10 or 11 years old. And I remember what happened to Rodney King. And that, you know, at that time, I wanted to know more about the criminal justice system and what was going on with the plight of people. And then to now see this 30 years later, as a judge, you know, we've got judicial canons, and we are the body of people that when there are issues that are happening, that we are a good leader that is able to see and hear both sides, apply the law, and make a decision. And so as an individual, you know, an African American, definitely, you know, I understand and see what is happening around the world and in our country. And one thing that I'm inspired by is seeing that individuals are using their First Amendment right and using their voice within the confines of law, the peaceful protests. I know there's been some inciting that's happened, and there's been some riots. And so then, you know, yes, the law has been violated. But, you know, I understand that people, humans, have a right to voice their opinions and to fight for justice. And, you know, there are instances where justice has been fought for African Americans, and then there's instances where justice has been fought for women, LGBT. It depends on the nature and you know, what's going on. But right now in the world, there's a right being fought for Black lives. And then, you know, there's a number of things that are going on. I am happy to see that our country, our mayors, our governors are working towards opening up their eyes and listening. I am disappointed, you know, to see the areas that have been, the laws that have been violated and the people that have been hurt, the lives that have been taken under, you know, this time. So it hurts any time that a human life is taken unlawfully. But at the same time, is this body of government that we have a role that we have to just listen, watch, and then when it comes before us, to be able to make the right decision. And so it, you know, if I was a mayor, if I was a governor, if I was a council member, if I was any other type of elected official, I probably could have an opinion or a voice about some of these things. But I have learned very well, and you know, taken my role as a judge very seriously to make sure that I'm prepared and ready to look at both sides, to apply the law when necessary.
That's what you've done with these community courts, which I'm going to talk about in a moment. And then I want to ask also Howard Gentry, as you've watched these protests, how great do you feel like the need is for reform? Do you feel like something can come of these protests that's tangible?
Well, I absolutely hope something can come as a result of the protests. The fact is, I'm very, in some ways conflicted, but not. I see the cause of the protests as being real. The cause of the protest is real actions that have taken place. And, you know, I was here 50 years ago. Matter of fact, I remember 60 years ago. And what bothers me today, and I'm truly bothered, is that the conversations my parents were having with my sister and I, and our teachers and preachers and everyone during the civil rights period, during segregation, when things had just gotten so bad that people were just tired, sick and tired of it, and they started demonstrating. Those same conversations I'm having with my children today. And even though times have gotten better, the fact is these circumstances have not changed. And so you ask me, do I think that things will get better? I hope they do, but I'm not going to, I try to draw a line between the protesting and what is going on and the causes, because this is just a symptom of a bigger problem. And so I hope eyes are open. Yes, I'm like Judge Bell. I don't like to see buildings destroyed and fires. I don't like to see the courthouse set on fire. But I can't let that distract me in understanding that there is a root cause for all of this. And until we're ready to face what those causes are, until we're ready to really not just change policing, but also change the criminal justice system into a system that is more fair for everybody, more equitable for everybody, then we've got a problem. So I hope that all that is taking place, the good and the bad, will open our eyes up, our hearts up, but more so, one day we will be able to get off our knees and stand up and really make a change.
And I believe both of you at some point have expressed frustration. I mean, you have a front row seat to what is happening. I mean, you're
Yes.
prominent players in our justice system, but you're also at the same time frustrated. We've done a series of reports here at our station called Broken, and it was on the juvenile justice system. And I've had more than one person say the system isn't necessarily broken, it's operating just as it was set up. What is broken is
Yes.
the way it was set up, and we need to change some of those things. This court, this community court, is talking about expungements, which wipes, I guess, wipes your record clean. And I guess, Judge Bell, I'll let you talk about this court and what it does, and how the remarkable increase in expungements kind of indicates that there was a problem, may still be a problem. But tell us, what does the court do, and kind of what are expungements? Just talk about this court.
Thank you for that opportunity. The Mid-State Community Court was started a little bit after I got elected. I, as a lawyer, was doing a lot of legal clinics around the city, trying to help people restore their rights, doing expungements and all types of stuff as a lawyer. But then when I realized as a judge that I couldn't help people in that fashion anymore. So I was wondering how to continue to help people understand more about their opportunity with the law, the process of the law, and how I could be visible. As I indicated, I would serve on the bench and off the bench. My thing is justice doesn't stop at the courthouse steps. And so I went and asked Howard Gentry, our criminal court clerk. I knew he was already doing some expungement work in the community. What would that partnership look like? And we were able to form some great ideas to kind of open it up, where I was able to bring some dockets to the community. So one of the first dockets with expungement was adopting a highway over here in Bordeaux, North Nashville, because that's where we saw a lot of the need in the community. So it was a community service return docket. Individuals have to go clean up 4 or 5 hours or 6 hours for community service work. After they do it, they have to come back to court to show proof. And it seemed to me, how can we do a one-stop stop? Judge Leon Rubin, my predecessor, once a year would do a cleanup, but then the individuals will still come back to show proof. And so I figured out, if we do the cleanup on the same day, have court on the same day, process their paperwork to be expunged on the same day, that could be a one-stop shop. So then Howard and I started working together on the expungements. And so we started bringing those opportunities around the city to different churches, community centers, getting on the radio, Facebooking, going live, just telling people, hey, you can get your record expunged. Monday through Friday, Howard Gentry in his office does a great job with the criminal court clerk. But there was an opportunity to open that up for people on Saturdays. Some people can't take off work Monday through Friday. Some people are very afraid of coming to the courthouse for a number of different reasons. And so we wanted to make it a little less intimidating and open up opportunities for them in the community, at community centers and at churches. And Howard would tell you the stats, but I do know that I believe once we got together, I think the numbers went up 100%, then 200%, then 300% in just a short period of time. But the music community court, you know, is not something.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. It's a dramatic increase. Yeah, I mean, I have the numbers. In 2011, there were about 14,000 cases expunged. In 2018, 34,000 cases expunged. And when we talk about expunged, tell us what that means and why that is so important.
Well, when individuals have a criminal record, whether the case is dismissed or the case is nollied or the case is retired, it still shows up on their record if they don't go and ask and request for it to be expunged, to be taken off of their record. A lot of people, and Howard says it all the time, I don't want to steal his thunder, or maybe continue to steal his thunder, but he says it all the time at our expungement clinics. How many of you knew once the judge said your case was dismissed or retired or nollied, that you could get your record expunged whenever, you know, that time came to get your record expunged? And out of maybe 100 people in the room, 1 or 2 people will raise their hand, didn't realize that they still had to go to the criminal court clerk's office. They still had to file the paperwork to start the process. So getting your record expunged is removing the criminal record off of your background. Once you process it with the criminal court clerk's office, is then turned into the judge that may have rendered the disposition for that case. Then it's turned over to the TBI, and then it goes to the TBI process, and it's removed off your record. A lot of people don't realize that a dismissed case still shows up, and that can hurt a lot of people because an employer may realize that the case is dismissed, but then they're looking at that charge. And even though you were potentially innocent or potentially, you know, given a second chance, still showing up in your record. And it's hard to tell somebody, hey, I was charged with theft, or I was charged with criminal trespass, or I was charged with this, but it's dismissed. Individuals don't think about the word dismissed. They just look at the charge, the underlying charge. And so trying to help people wipe their record clean, restore themselves, and move forward in their lives is very, very, very important to me. And so I know it's very important to Howard.
Yeah, so Howard Gentry, what were you seeing? That people weren't aware that they could get their record expunged, or they couldn't afford to get their record expunged, or kind of what were you seeing?
Well, it's all the above, but what I really saw, what really struck me, was the fact that people didn't know. And I'm not talking about just poor people who did not have the resources for attorneys and what have you. I'm talking about educated business owners. We run the gamut with that, but what I was realizing was when I became criminal court clerk, I knew what an expungement was, but I did not know all of the parts and the moving parts around it. I was not aware that if a case is dismissed and there's no cost, that record shall be expunged, but you have to ask for it. Or you have to come personally, you would have to come and ask that to be done. So you can imagine if say a homeless person or a person who didn't really understand the law, or a person who just didn't have any assistance really in the courtroom beyond maybe representation. But when the judge says dismissed on cost, that means, when the judge says dismissed, and say if the judge says no cost, that person just hears dismissed and they fly out of the courtroom. If they're not told while they're there that their case can be expunged if they come up on the second floor, down to the second floor and to the clerk's office and sign the paperwork, they never know it. So they leave and they think that with the case being dismissed, it's just gone. But that case follows them all the rest of their lives if they don't know it. And then a lot of people thought that in 10 years it would come off like a bankruptcy or something. So I was finding that occurring all over the place, especially when we started the expungement clinics. But we started the expungement clinic as a result of me finding this out, that people just didn't know it. So we started off partnering with the schools. And so the parents and families of schools, Metro School System would notify them that we would have expungement clinics at a school. And people would come by the hundreds. We weren't ready for this. And we would try to service them, and it would take all day. But we were starting to pick up numbers as it related to expungements. Then the word got out. And so we were having expungement clinics all over town. And it was not very organized, but when Judge Bell and I hooked up, it became a different thing. Rachel Bell has helped us to put this on steroids, and now we have our own court where in the highest incarcerated district in Tennessee, and used to be the nation, in 37208, where people don't even have to come to the courthouse, and it provides them opportunities. And so through education, through us reaching out to the community, you know, justice is not served just in the courthouse, as Rachel Bell would say. It's served all over. And we can bring justice to you just as easily as you can come and ask for justice.
I think that is
it's just grown.
Yeah, that is an interesting part of this, that it is actually, you go into this zip code, you go into a community center, I believe, in 37208. And so you're going out to the people and helping this happen. And I want to ask Howard Gentry, then I'll ask Judge Bell, what about the money aspect of this? The thing you cited was a judge says, case dismissed. Are there often court costs, and do you have to pay court costs in order to get your record expunged? And can a lot of people not afford that? Or what about the money aspect to getting a case expunged?
Well, the fact is, all fines and fees must be paid before you can have a case expunged. But the majority of people that come through our courthouse and that have those type of cases that can be expunged have been ruled are indigent. They do not have the resources to pay those fees. So we have taken an aggressive approach on that aspect. We in our office have a compliance division where they can come and sit down with the compliance officer, and we can help determine their ability to pay. If they have the ability to pay, we have the opportunity to put them on payment plans, and that does help. But a large number, I mean tens of thousands, do not have the ability to pay. And we then have them fill out forms, and they're able to go before Judge Bill, and they're able to plead indigent. Once that occurs, and if the fees are in fact waived, then they do not owe money. They can come back to our office. A lot now with the court that we have, they don't have to come back to our office. We take the paperwork back, and we're able to process that paperwork and expunge their records. So you were asking about the money. Well, the truth of the matter is that because we are waiving fees, because we are treating the indigent the way that they deserve to be treated as indigent, a lot of the revenue that comes into the court system on the backs of poor people has now been reduced by great sums of money, and that's just the cost of doing business in the criminal justice system the right way.
That's an interesting thing as well, and I'll ask more about that in a moment. But if we're getting in less money because indigent people are no longer being forced to pay, then that might say something again about the overall system. But Judge Bell, how important is that aspect of it? So people come before you and you declare them indigent. Is that right? Is that something that you're doing a lot? Is that something that, again, they didn't know about before that they could even do?
I would agree with Howard. A lot of what we've done is really opening up their eyes and letting individuals know what is accessible to them. The NSC docket has been, or the rule of law to declare somebody indigent has been a part of the criminal justice system since probably the 1960s or 70s. It's the same federal guidelines that we declare if somebody is able to have the public defender be their attorney. And so it's the same guidelines that we follow. It's not a new law. It's just a law that we took some time to look at how can we create a docket. For a period of time, all the judges, I'm one of 11 judges, each judge would have their own indice docket. And, that was causing us to have a lot of individuals coming to the court for different dockets, different judges, because some individuals have a lengthy criminal record and they've been before almost every judge at some point in their life. And so I asked my colleagues, and they were okay with it, if I could take over the indice docket, where I do it once a week on Wednesdays at 10:30 for those that are incarcerated, and at 1:30 for those that are not incarcerated, and then we do it on Saturday as well. But it was a work in progress when Howard was able to add the criminal court compliance division to his office, because we've got to make sure that we look at their W-2s, we look at their tax returns, look at their bank records to really, in fact, declare them indigent, just like the public defender's office does. And then once Howard's office does their part, then they get put on a court docket. And then I review their paperwork and declare them indigent. And sometimes I'm not able to declare them indigent, and I have to put them on the payment plan. But yes, we have ramped that docket up, 100 people. Well, with COVID-19, we weren't able to do the docket for the last couple of weeks, but 100 people per docket, getting them in and out of the courthouse, because as Howard has said, it's over 100,000 people that have come through that docket. Since I've been a judge in the last 8 years, the numbers, it's 100 people per docket, and that docket is every week. So it's a lot of people that have come through that docket, and a lot of people that have been declared indigent, helping them to move forward in their lives and right the wrongs and have a second chance at an opportunity to live and have equal access to all the human basic necessities that sometimes are stripped away just because of your criminal record.
Right, equal access. And I'm fascinated, Howard Gentry, what you said about the money. And so you said revenues have gone down since this happened. I guess expand on that. I have some numbers in front of me. I don't know how to quite read them, I think, right. But numbers have gone, what do you mean revenue has gone down?
Well, the fact is that prior to us being as aggressive as we are, not just with expungements, but with how many people are being diverted from the courtroom and being diverted from arrest, and there is a bigger movement than just expungements. They're steering clear where a person doesn't get booked, and the process within the court system is not. And Rachel Bell can talk to that a lot better than I can. But the process doesn't even start. But let's go back to what you asked me. The fact is that in doing this the right way, in determining people's ability to pay after they've already been arrested and they've served their time, or they've done whatever the judge whatever the disposition was within the courtroom, all that's left is paying fines and fees for having been in the courtroom or having gone through the system. And there is no, that particular situation can be the difference between a person actually being able to get a job, get housing, be able to move on with their education, or even move on to their lives. So the fact is that being poor should not criminalize a person. So we are now becoming more aggressive in providing people their constitutional rights, and that is the right to declare indigency, the right to have their fees waived, and the right to have their records expunged. And in doing that, there are probably thousands and thousands of people that no longer have to choose between food and jail fees, or choose between medical care and jail fees, or having an automobile to drive in to work and jail fees. And so when that occurs, if you look at that and really weigh the balance, they paid their dues because they had to whatever the punishment was, they had to actually go through that punishment. And the fact is that if we can relieve them of the financial strain and get them back on their feet, the fact is society benefits from that. They become productive citizens in this community. So if we lose money within the court system to help somebody to become better and financially stable, really and truly Nashville benefits from that, and the world benefits from that.
They
And
become
so,
a
yes, the numbers are.
Yeah, they become a contributing member of society, and this has been a barrier in the past. And at the top of the show, Howard Gentry, I believe I was talking about how, you know, some people were talking about the system was broken, and no, it's set up to what it's doing what it was set up to do. And I think I said something like, you've both been frustrated, and I think I heard you say yes. Have you been?
Yes.
Is this
Yes.
one of the areas where you've been most frustrated, or again, you're right in the middle of it? Have you been frustrated by the system at times, or what about that?
Well, the fact is, the frustrating part to me is the lack of equity within the system. If you're poor, if you're a person of color, you don't get to see over the fence that others do. You don't get the stools and the ladders to reach the top, so to speak. I know that no system can be equal, but equity is the same opportunity. So a poor person should have the same opportunity to be able to remove themselves from the weight of the criminal justice system as one who has means. Unfortunately, I work within a criminal justice system that does not that does not show efforts to have true equity. When you have jails that are over 50% filled by people of color, when they only 20% or 21% of the population, there's a problem there. When you have a court system that is, or when we have our expungement clinics and the majority of the people that are there, be it 20 people or 100 people, are people of color, and there's a problem, because the fact is people of color are not getting arrested more than the majority of the majority community, but they find themselves, and we find ourselves, wallowing in the system over a longer period of time because we're not getting what the same attention and getting treated in the same manner. But that doesn't start in the jails. It doesn't start in the courts. It starts outside of the courts, and it's just a continuation of what is taking place in our society and our communities.
That's a significant criticism. Yeah, Judge Bell, that was a damning criticism there. It's about wealth, and it's there's an inequity there. You're a judge. We have to go to break in a moment, but I want to give you a quick moment. What do you think about what you just heard there?
Hold on one second. It's a damning reality.
Yeah.
It's not a damning accusation. It's a damning reality.
It's a damning reality. Okay, what do you think, Judge Bell?
I would say that, you know, a lot of what Howard has shared, you know, a number of us in the judicial system, and I don't want to speak for my colleagues, but I think they would appreciate me saying this. Over the period of time, at least for the last, I would say 12 years, our judges have looked at ways that we can bring alternatives to incarceration and remove those barriers and remove those fines that Howard is saying. And so, you know, our recovery court, our drug court, our sex trafficking court, our mental health court, our veterans court, and then the Music City Community Court, one that we're creating for ages 18 to 30, the housing court. So there are a number of different things that we're doing because we realize that punishment itself is not the solution. Giving somebody some tools to restore themselves, giving somebody some education to restore themselves, and helping them move through what cause them to be a part of the criminal justice system is the work that we're doing. And so I'm very proud of my colleagues, as well as, Judge Steph Norman, who started DC4. And so I would say Davidson County, at least I can speak for the state of Tennessee, I know that we are on the front lines of creating every type of specialty court that we could to try to help. Drug addiction needs treatment. Mental health violators, because of what's going on with their mental health, needs assistance and treatment. People that are ages 18 to 30 are just making bad decisions. So all of these courts have been created specifically for individuals that are nonviolent, so that we can help them make better decisions, give them the tools and the resources to be able to live life just a little bit better. Making sure that they do pay restitution to the victim and that they do restore the community when they've harmed the community. And I believe a number of people in Davidson County can say that because of those courts and because of our body of work that we're doing, that we're moving the needle. I always say move the needle for marginalized people in a way that we can. We're not able to fix everything, but at least we're trying, and we're putting one foot in front of the other. And really, I was talking to a friend yesterday, and it's kind of what Howard is saying, that we can't ask everybody to be on the same playing field if we don't give everybody equal access, the same ladder, the same bootstraps, the same tennis shoes, the same things that they need, the tools and the resources to be successful. And it shouldn't be that a person with means gets the resources and a person that's poor doesn't get the resources, especially when they're just basic necessities, human basic necessities. And so I know that our body of work definitely is speaking that we are looking at that, we realize that, and we are moving the needle. And
there's a desperation. I feel like now there's a mood out there that hopefully will allow even more and rapid change. All right, but we have to take a break. A great discussion, and we have a bunch of calls. So if you're on the line, hold on the line. We're going to take a break, and we'll come back and we'll start taking calls. Take a break. Be back right after this.